Mr. O'Byrne, and today we're going to talk about multiplying negative numbers. It may sound daunting, but multiplying negative numbers is actually easier than it is to add or subtract negative numbers. Let's take a look. When we actually multiply a negative number by a positive number, we get a negative number. When we multiply two negative numbers together, a negative number and a negative number, we actually get a positive number. Okay? Kind of crazy cool. What I've been taught, and a lot of teachers have been taught, is that unlike terms become negative and like terms become positive. Let's talk about what like and unlike terms mean. The symbol that's in front of the number is, we're going to reference it as a term. So this negative term in front of the number is different than the positive term in front of this number. Okay? So a negative term and a positive term are unlike. They're not the same. So unlike terms end up giving us a negative number. If we look over here, a negative term in front of the number times a negative term in front of the other number is actually going to give us a positive term because they're like terms. So unlike terms, so there's a negative and a plus, a minus and a plus are going to give us a minus number. A minus number and another minus number will multiply together, give us a positive number. Let me say it pretty straight, and we'll read on the bottom of this page. A negative number times a positive number is going to be a negative number. It's going to result in a negative number. And it can also switch, that a positive number times a negative number is also going to be a negative number. Here's the tricky and kind of weird part in multiplication and division. When you have a negative number and you multiply it by another negative number, you get a positive number. That's the trick. So we have a negative number plus another negative number is going to be a positive number. And a pretty easy way to show you it is just throw up two negative numbers. That times that gives you positive. Kind of weird. Let's go to a real life example. Hi, this is Mr. O'Byrne, and let's think of a real life situation in which we use multiplication both with positive integers and negative integers, and we either take a positive times a positive times a negative, or a negative times a negative. So let's first do 3 times 4. We have 3 calculators and they're worth $4 each. So we sell the first calculator, we get $4, the second is 8, and the third is 12. So we basically sold 3 calculators for $4 each. So that's 3 times 4, and we get $12 for selling those calculators. Now, after we did this, let's think about if we were buying the calculators and not selling them. So there's 3 calculators on sale, and they cost $4 each. So each time we buy a calculator, we lose $4. So 4, 8, $12. So we've lost $4. So we bought 3 calculators and it cost us $4 each time. So we lost $12 total. This would be a bad business decision because we could sell them for 9, but we'd only lose them for 12. So let's do an example of when multiplying a negative by a negative ends up being positive. So let's say that we decided not to buy any calculators. So we didn't buy one that was worth $4, that would have lost us $4. We didn't buy 2 that would have lost us $4, and we didn't buy 3 that would have lost us $4. So really, essentially, we did negative 3 calculators times negative $4 that would have cost us, and we really saved ourselves $12. So we do negative 3 times negative 4 equals 12. Hope that made sense. Hi, I'm Mr. Green, filling in here for Mr. O'Byrne. I am the guy that shows you the examples on the whiteboard. Now what we're going to do is we're going over multiplying negative numbers. So first what we're going to do is we're going to do a pretty simple multiplication. Before we do this problem, I want to quickly go over what we are doing now in Math 7. Instead of this X symbol being the multiplication symbol within this operation, we are actually going to change that, and from now on we're always going to use this filled in dot. It's pretty big, right in the middle of the numbers. That means multiplication, and it's going to become really important that we use that as a multiplication symbol once we get into algebra, because x is a commonly known variable for algebra. So let's go through this quick expression that's both positive. 2 times 6, that's going to be equal to 12. We have two positive numbers that are coming together to find a positive answer. So we have 2 times 6 equals 12. A positive times a positive gives us a positive. So that is the first one we know. 2 times 6 equals 12. All right, I'm going to try to color code this next one. So our second one, we're actually going to do a positive times a negative, or a negative times a positive. So going along with our notes up here, why don't we do a negative times a positive number? So why don't you guys go ahead and try this. Negative 3 times multiply positive 4. And just so we remember that this is a positive number, I'm going to put a plus symbol right by it. Okay? Negative 3 times positive 4. Now, this number, go ahead and try to give it a shot real quick, what you think this answer is going to be. I'll give you 5 seconds. If we take a negative number and we multiply it by a positive number, we're going to get a negative answer. So right away, before you even perform 3 times 4, we can already put the symbol that we want it to be, or we know it's going to be. And that's going to equal a negative number. Right away, if we look up to our rule, a negative number times a positive number is going to be a negative number at the end. So when we look at this is we figured out the symbol already that's going to go in front of it, the sign. Negative 3 times positive 4 is going to be a negative number, so we put the negative sign. Now we simply perform what 3 times 4 is. 3 times 4 is 12. So our answer is going to be negative 12. Pretty simple answer. Now just to reiterate something that might confuse you is that we did a negative times a positive equals a negative number. The same goes for a positive number times a negative number equals a negative number. It's actually called the commutative property, which means we can flip these two things and it'll result in the same thing. So let's go positive. I'll put a plus up here just to connotate that sign in front of it is automatically positive when we don't have anything in front of it. But positive 3, and we'll multiply it by negative 4. So we have negative right here, negative 4 equals. Now before we can do anything, we know any type of number operation, we can just do this sign operation. So we have a positive sign and a negative sign. A positive sign times a negative sign, unlike signs, are going to equal a negative sign. Right away, before we do anything, we know that it's going to be negative. Now we can do the number part of this operation. 3 times 4 is negative 12. Same answer as the last example, we just flipped them. So positive times a negative is again going to be a negative. Now we're going to get into the more tricky and scary situation in which two negative numbers are multiplied together. Now as you can see and as we reviewed, two negative numbers multiplied together result in a positive number. This is the most difficult and kind of not intuitive part of multiplying negative numbers. So what we do is we can do what we did for the last one. We worry about the signs first and then we can worry about the numbers later. So first we'll have a negative number. Let's do negative 3, and then we're going to multiply that by negative 2. Okay? And that is actually going to equal a positive, because we know right away that it's going to be a positive number, because a negative times a negative is a positive. A positive, now we can do the number part of it, 6. So like symbols, negative times a negative are going to result in a positive symbol. Now we can write that positive symbol. That's just to remind ourselves that it's a positive symbol. But commonly in the mathematical world, we don't put the plus in front of the, even though it's a positive number, we don't put the plus in front of the number. So I'm gonna erase that right there, and it's just gonna be 6. So -3 times -2 equals 6. This is Mr. Green signing out, and maybe we'll get a shot from Landon, but he's absent today, so no shot from Landon. Bye.